Okay, so I don't know if we're going to have some people join or not, but talking about self-care today. And I wanted to see kind of how everybody's doing. I shared it on an Instagram video. I did an Instagram video too. I need to figure out how to do these in one thing, but we're not quite there yet. We're not to the point of doing things one-off yet. I'm getting there. I do have OBS, and I'm learning how to use OBS, so there's that. Now, I have not figured out how to add people into the chat yet, so but I do want to do that. I want to have I didn't know I could do that. But I wanted to find out how people are doing today. How is the self-care going? For me, I needed a couple days to yesterday it was all hands on deck yesterday. Let me explain. So yesterday we did the Power to Pivot challenge, and that was like a 6-hour thing. It was, sorry, I'm messing with the camera right now. It was great. It was terrific, and it reignited a fire in me. I had been a little bit weary, and I've been working really hard on this on these workshops and trying to move that ball forward, and doing a lot of recording, doing a lot of editing. But I needed to take some time today for some self-care. I needed to do a facial, which I did. I posted a funny picture of my facial experience. And then I've had my lemon water this morning, and so that's kind of where we're at. I have not meditated yet, which I usually do. I did take an early nap. I was up early, and so I took a nap for like half an hour at 11 o'clock. Whatever. But I wanted to check in with you guys and see what kind of questions about self-care I can answer, or anything else. Like, I'm here to be a resource too. And as a coach, one of the things that it's important to do for me is to give back and add value in a real meaningful way. So coaching is not just with clients. Coaching is a lifestyle, right? So one of the things that I like to do is come on here and do a live chat and just see how people are doing. How are you doing with your self-care? How are you doing in making things a better practice for yourself? How are you pivoting during COVID? What are you doing to move the ball forward for yourself? So ask me anything. If you have a question, send it, pop me up a question. Happy to answer that question for you about self-care. For me today, the answer was I'm dealing with a little bit. So here's the backstory. I was on that workshop yesterday for 6 hours, and I was sitting on my new chair, and I got a new chair because I usually work at a standing desk, but I found a bar height stool with a back on it that I can use as well. So I'm alternating between them because I've been getting some low psoas back stuff going on. A lot of it because I'm back in the gym trying to push myself too hard. And so where was I going with this? The 6 hours I spent on that chair really aggravated my psoas last night. So I had to get down and do some yoga for about 40 minutes on the floor, yoga on the floor in my tiny apartment, which is fun. It gives my neighbors a nice show. They get to look right out and look right in on me right here in front of my couch doing my yoga, which I'm sure is fun for them, watching a 48-year-old man get down on the floor and try to work out his back issues doing yoga. I also meditate right in this spot, which is also in the window, only and it's kind of the window's over here, so they can't see that. But so I've given you 4 different things there of parts of my self-care practice. My self-care practice involves yoga. My self-care practice involves meditation. My self-care practice involves my lemon water and celery in the morning to detox my system. My self-care involves taking a nap if I need it. So what questions do you have about self-care? What needs do you have about self-care? Where are you not measuring up in your own self-care? What do you need to do to practice more self-care? So please ask me a question. Happy to answer any question that you have. You can also leave questions in the comments after, if you're watching the replay of this. Ask questions in the comments and I will answer your questions. So the reason that I'm focusing on self-care today is this is Recovery Month. It's also National Mental Health Awareness Month. So a lot of my friends in recovery, a lot of people in my social circle are dealing with, getting through during COVID and all that kind of thing. But also there's a broader perspective for this, right? So what are you doing to take care of yourself and pivot and shift during COVID? Not everybody's going to go back to work right away. Not everybody's going to go back to work at all, right? Some people don't know what their status is going to be. And so having an honest conversation about self-care during this time when it's uncertain is naturally part of the coaching conversation, right? When a furlough or a layoff happens, what are you doing to pivot? A lot of my friends and colleagues in the hospitality industry. I was working in hospitality before I became a coach full-time. And they just announced the layoffs at the hotel I was just at a couple days ago. And I was one of those that was laid off. I knew that it was coming for me. And so I put a plan in place very early on when I was furloughed. I was like, yeah, well, I see the writing on the wall, so need to do something about this. But I have colleagues who are not in that space. They're not there. They're in shock right now. And so I want to acknowledge that some people are in shock right now, and that's okay. And mourning is okay. Mourning is a natural thing. And honoring that mourning and honoring the fact that you're getting this message from the universe that change is necessary, you have 2 choices. You can either hide from it. You can either, put up the blinders and say, "Oh, I'm not going to pay attention to that change. I'm just going to go get another job at the same thing that I've been doing, and that's all I'm going to do, and that's because that's all I can handle right now. I just got to get another job. I got to pay the bills, right?" That's one way to go, and that's okay if that's what works for you. Hi, Marcel. Great to see you. But if you are like me and you feel this energy from the universe and you feel, if you're empathic at all, you might be saying, "Oh, I have an opportunity. Hey, Lori, I'm thinking of you. I was actually just talking about this situation. You have an opportunity to shift now." And if you are like me, the shift is something that the universe brings to us, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're religious or not. If you are spiritual at all, if you are intuitive at all, if you have instinct at all, you can't help but wonder, okay, so what is this message that I'm getting from the universe? I've been laid off, I've been furloughed, I've been stuck at home, working from home with the kids. A lot of people are in that situation. My boss is putting too much pressure on me to perform when we're working from home more than other people because I'm single and the people with the kids are getting the break. I've heard that one too. And so there are some lessons on shifting that we can get to in the coaching conversation. But first and foremost, the self-care conversation is the first conversation. Because while you're in shock, while you're mourning, while you're beginning this process of exploration, and a lot of people, if you were furloughed or laid off back in March, well, then you've been thinking about this. Or society is expecting too much of me. That is true, Marcel. That is absolutely true. And a lot of people don't acknowledge that society is expecting too much of us. Society is a cruel, cruel master. And this system was not set up to be nice to us. The capitalist system was set up to extract money from us, or extract labor from us for money, for sustenance. That's the give and take of the capitalist system. And there are things that we can do to shift that too, right? So, if you've watched my videos, you know that I joined the Knowledge Broker Blueprint back in June. Well, that was the only thing I did. I took this message of being furloughed very seriously. It was smack in the face, whack. Got to do something. Got to make a change. So the question was, what was the change? And I said, okay, well, I'm going to do two or three key things. The first thing I did was I signed up for a free course with Florida Atlantic University for hospitality management, because at that point we didn't know whether hospitality business was coming back or not. So covered my bases with that one, right? I just thought, it's FAU, it's a great program, it's hospitality, it'll help me move up in my career when I go back to a hotel, if I go back to a hotel. But then as things began to get worse with COVID, and we began to see that hotels were shutting down, and they were completely shutting down. It wasn't just here, it was all over the world. Airlines were shutting down. Cruise lines had tons of cases, right? Then businesses shut down and sent their workers back out home to work remote. And then we made this massive shift to remote. Oh, wow. So that little course that I took in hospitality management probably isn't going to do the deal. So that was step one, was acknowledgement and understanding. Acknowledgement that things were going to be not according to plan. And that I needed to come up with a different plan. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I just needed to listen to the universe and find out what spoke to me. And I'll get to that in a second. Step two was I thought, okay, so this is an opportunity to make a shift towards what I'm really passionate about, and that's coaching and helping other people get their knowledge out of themselves. Thanks for the like, Rocky. The fact of the matter is that if you're really listening to the universe will tell you what you've got to do. If you listen in here and you take the time to be still and quiet, it will come. And it may take a while, but it will come. The universe will give you clues. Tony Robbins says, success leaves clues. Well, the universe gives you clues all the time on what you're supposed to do, what direction you're supposed to go in. The question is, are you listening? Are you listening? Are you watching? Are you noticing what the universe is telling you? Are you listening and noticing what the mirror that you're reflected in, which that is what the world is. The world is a mirror of ourselves. And so watching what that mirror is telling us, and it's giving us clues constantly. We're constantly getting clues as to what direction we're supposed to go in. Everything from choices about our health, to choices about our work, to choices about our relationships, to choices about how we spend our time, choices on our health, choices on our fitness. You know, Lori does marathons and works out. That's a choice that people make. And, you know, I saw this furlough as, okay, I got to make some choices. So then I was exposed to Knowledge Broker Blueprint. And at the same time, I was challenged to look further within myself about my own goals. And so I had these two things sitting here. One was I had been encouraged by a lot of people to become a therapist and a counselor, specifically a drug and alcohol counselor and clinical therapist, to help people who are who have experienced trauma, who are dealing with identity issues around their LGBTQIA identity, people who are dealing with racial trauma issues, people, you know, back to my roots of my political organizing, same people. There's a reason we become activists. It's because we have been traumatized by the system in some way. That's usually, most of the people I know who are activists today have had some sort of injustice that they have experienced that they are working out through their activism. Their response to the injustice is to plow forward on creating change. Very healthy way to process. If you're going to be an activist, you know, being an activist for change because you've experienced something that makes you shift into that mode, that's an actual healthy way to process your trauma. It's not the only way, though. And so for me, being in the helping professions had to be a consideration. So I filed my papers for grad school. Again, if you're watching right now, if you have a question about self-care, if you have a question about mental health, question about addiction, ask away. Question about my coaching, what coaching I'm doing, about the workshops, anything. I'll answer anything. So feel free to fire away with a question. So I applied for grad school, and that's a waiting game. So that took about 2 weeks for me to get the application and the materials and my references together and file it. At the same time, I was exposed to Knowledge Broker Blueprint. And Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins have put together this program that teaches you how to shift onto from being stuck where you're at to taking some knowledge that you have within you, distilling that knowledge, pulling it out of you, extracting it, and putting it into an online course or online seminar or it's called the Self-Knowledge Industry. It's a self-knowledge program. And it's a whole platform. So it's not just the teaching, it's the coaching, it's the mentoring. It is the tools themselves. There's 2 tools that are involved with Mastermind.com, that is Dean and Tony's company that does this. And it's a long program. It took me almost 2 months to get through it. Now, I did some things in between there that I'll talk about as well. But it was the foundation of the idea of me becoming a knowledge broker and becoming a helper for people who want to get their own knowledge out of them and put it into a course so that they can earn money from that knowledge and create a shift. Become a helper by helping yourself. Help yourself, help the other person. Teach a person to fish. Teach a being to fish. You know that parable, teach a man to fish? That's what it is. And the online tools and the coaching and the mentoring are amazing. And they're unending. Honestly, Like there's almost too much. It's like drinking from a fire hose. So I have to go back and actually go through the course again to really, really drill down on some of the things I wasn't ready for because I was just starting out. So that's step 2. Grad school application, and then Knowledge Broker Blueprint. And then came this barrage of other programs. I did Dean Graciosi's 30-day Better Life Challenge. I did Tony Robbins' 7-day Comeback Challenge. I did Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within Virtual. All very transformative programs that focus on real action, real change, drilling down on your issues, integrating shadows, all that. And then I became very fortunate at the very same time to be accepted and got a scholarship to Eckhart Tolle's Conscious Manifestation Program, which I am in the midst of wrapping up now. I've learned so much from Eckhart Tolle's program in balance with the other programs from Dean and Tony to allow me to be present and to be aware of where I am supposed to go. Listening to the presence. Hey, Chad, good to see you, buddy. To listen to the presence, listen to the inner being, listen to the consciousness within me to figure out what the next place I needed to go was. And so I got a scholarship to that, and I was so fortunate because it happened I got it right at the same time that I was in the middle of UPW Virtual. I found out that I was getting this Eckhart Tolle scholarship as well. So a lot of gratitude for that and that's another sign. That's a signal. So if you're paying attention, there have been several steps along the way of things that I have done or suggestions that have been made to me by the universe, by my consciousness, that have led me to really do the balanced look, not just all rah, 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 not just all business, but also presence and coaching tools and understanding and compassion and being, just being. Through this, I also started meditating a lot more. Now, I've been meditating for about, off and on for about 3 years, but I was never really good at it. I also was chanting. And for those of you who don't know what chanting is, ask me a question, I can answer that. These signposts along the way, the free program from FAU, the grad school application, the invitation to watch, and I took advantage of Knowledge Broker Blueprint, which you buy into, the other development programs, the Eckhart Tolle program scholarship, all these things led me in a direction of understanding, okay, these are signposts that I need to focus on my education, on my self-education. I need to focus on the helping professions because I'm really jazzing with this coaching content, presence content, spiritual content, mental health and addiction content. You know, I work a program of recovery too. So I'm working steps and I work with a sponsor every day. I talk to my sponsor almost every day. I work steps every week and we meet and I share my steps with him every week. So I go to meetings and I continue to work that. I see a therapist every week. Every frickin' week. And sometimes I don't want to go, but I do. Because I know that that's part of the process, right? Step 3, which was a real balancing act. The Eckhart Tolle was the step 3. Led to step 4, which was me getting my actual life coaching certifications. I went through a very rapid fire, all intense set of 2 certification programs, like back to back. I did them in a week each to get my life coaching certification on top of the Knowledge Broker certification. So I had the Knowledge Broker certification, which is a certain amount of life coaching, but then you have, and it's business coaching as well. And then you have the life coaching and the life coaching business certifications. So I'm qualified now to be a coach for other coaches, as well as for entrepreneurs, and individuals. So I can do life coaching, business coaching, and I can do knowledge and self-education coaching. So other people, if they want to create a course, I can help them with that. All of this leads to having a conversation with my first client, my first potential client, who did not sign on, but she did not sign on yet. What I found out that I was a very good coach, but I was such a good coach in this context that I actually coached her out of beginning to work with me right away. She needed to get her program together in the modality that she wanted to teach before she started working with me on her courses. So I'm going to work with her as a knowledge consultant instead of as a coach, but that's still business coaching. It's coaching the coach is what it is. But it's also, I help her assemble that program. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for joining. So we've got a few people who've popped on here. Marcel, Lori, Chad, Andrew. I saw Yater pop in and out there in a second. So thanks for watching, you guys. Thanks for joining me. I hope you're having a great Friday. The topic today is self-care, so I'm answering any question about self-care. If you have a question, pop it into the comments, into the chat box, and I will answer it on the fly. Christy, good to see you. Thanks for popping on as well. And we're talking about self-care today. We're talking about how to make a shift during this difficult time. We're in this process right now where with COVID, a lot of people are having a difficult time making a shift, and they're having a difficult time processing what their shift is going to be. And so I was talking earlier in the video, if you can go back and watch the replay after this, and where I talk about kind of the beginning of the process. So I'm in the middle of that. So then I got accepted for grad school, but then my student loans got denied. And that happened in July, all back to back. So I had to make a choice. Was I going to continue to go to grad school and just pay for it? Or was I going to wait until I got my student loans fixed? So I had to get my student loans fixed, and I delayed, I'm deferred until the spring. So I'm going to go back to grad school in the spring. And so I'm going to pursue that master's education, next level education, not for the purposes of the coaching business, but to add on that capability and add on that knowledge of mental health and addiction from the other side of the coin. Over the last 3 years, I've already got a master's degree in addiction. I know what that's all about, right? I know all about addiction. And I'm learning about recovery, and the 3 years that I've been doing this, I've learned about recovery. But I'm not done within my own personal journey, but I also have a passion for helping other people. So I'm going to learn how to do that coaching and counseling and therapy piece. The mental health stuff, I've worked in mentoring and coaching in my political work for a really long time. So understanding how to teach was not the problem. So back to alignment. So the alignment that we need to find with the signposts along the way, in my case, I had all these programs kind of boom, 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 boom. Over a 5-month period, I did 7 programs. And I'm about to do another one in October. I'm going to do another one. There's a summit coming up for Knowledge Broker Blueprint that I'm going to do. It's called the World Summit. If you have not heard about the World Summit and you're interested in going to the World Summit, which is the Knowledge Broker Blueprint World Summit, how to shift and start a digital business, DM me or send me a private message, and I'll send you some information about that. I'm going. It's going to be in October, the first week of October, or first weekend of October, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I think it is. 3 days, very intensive, immersive, digital entrepreneur classes and coaching from all the big stars: Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, Trent Shelton, Nick Stanisoso, Pete Vargas, like people who have, Brendan Burchard, people who are doing it and actually know how to build an online business and will teach you how to do an online business. So I had all these signposts along the way, and I began to build out my course, and I began to write in the midst of this. And so in between there, I had to also recognize the presence and the signposts of, oh, I need to make a shift. I need to slow down and really make sure I get this content right. And so I slowed down with my writing. I slowed down with my work on the courses. I consciously slowed down on that work to make sure I get it right. Because your first course, you don't have to get it perfect, but you do have to make sure that you know your content, and you have to have it organized well so people frickin' understand what you're talking about, right? If people don't frickin' understand what you're talking about, they're going to buy your course and they're going to be like, what the hell is this, right? So I needed to make sure that my message and my content was coherent. And so I assembled this system that is really a reflection of everything I've learned in my life and career, a lot of frameworks, but also processing this new information that I've used in the last 3 years and in the last 6 months and bringing it back to you. So in the program, there are coaching tools. There are why tools. We do some deep dive on what your why is. There is a presence process within it. So it's basically 3 elements. It's the reset button. You hit the reset button on your life, and that is a 5-step process, basically. Then there is the transformation engine phase, which is taking all of that stuff that you learned about your goals and your desires and your wants and your whys and putting it into a framework of actual change. So you get that engine started and you perpetually move yourself forward by continuing to work a program of transformation, right? And then step 3 is the spirituality part. And that is the rise piece. Because a lot of us in this society, global society, we have become disconnected from spirit. We have become disconnected from being. We've become disconnected from presence. We have an addiction to devices. I mean, it's ironic that I'm having this conversation on a device to talk to you, because we as a society have an addiction to devices. We do. The dopamine hit that we get off of every share and every like and every post it's dopamine, and it can be an addiction too. Make no mistake. One of the things I've had to be really aware of is staying balanced and putting the phone down, shutting the computer, turning off the iPad, not watching television, getting outside and doing things in nature to ground myself and be present. I also started running again. A lot of people don't know, but in early recovery in 2018, I fractured my ankle and was in an air cast for 4 or 5 months. They decided not to do surgery on me. They decided to let me heal naturally in the air cast. But it was the first really, really terrible snowstorm we had in 2018, right before the Super Bowl. And I was working at the Super Bowl. I was working as a security officer at the Super Bowl, so I had to do the whole Super Bowl in a frickin' air cast, which was fun, in 18 inches of snow. It was great. It's perfect. And I was going to outpatient at the same time. So I was going to outpatient in a place where you had to get down to the main floor where the lectures happen. You had to go down a flight of steps that were about yay wide and passing other people, but there was no elevator to that level. So you had to go down the steps in order to, Andrew remembers this, had to go down the steps, and I was doing the Super Bowl at the same time, and I fractured my ankle. Anyway, long story short, I got started running again last year, got to a plateau, and then I kind of stopped because I was working too much, and I working out too much. I was overtraining, and I began to get back issues back then. And that was all last fall. I was dealing with back issues all last fall. Well, what I found out, what I discovered was the back issues were not from the running. The back issues were from the work that I was doing. And I was having stress at work. And I was having trepidation about the work I was doing. I wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought I was going to. I got into it as a recovery job, right? So that was another signpost along the way. That's where I'm going with this, is the presence that we have to have. If you have questions, guys, feel free to pop a question into the comment box. I'm happy to answer any question about self-care, mental health, addiction, recovery, shifting, knowledge business, anything that you want to talk about. I'll answer anything. So the signposts along the way, I got another signpost with working on my courses that I needed to slow down, so I did that. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm in the middle of recording. I'm in the middle of recording these classes, which it takes a lot of energy to be the presenter as much as it does to be the receiver. You know, communication is a two-way street, and the energy that you bring to it is the energy you will get back out of it. And so I've had to balance that energy, learn how to balance that energy. And it's not as easy as you think it is to balance that energy. It is, you know, if you're going to really get the motivation out of your clients as a coach, if you're going to bring the heat as a coach, you gotta watch your energy. And so I can only do 1 or 2 videos at a time before my energy is sapped, because the engagement is as if you're live, right? And so I get as engaged as I do in a conversation with you here in those videos with the content that I've created in this coaching program. And I've assembled 20 years of consulting and coaching and mentoring that I've received, and I'm bringing it back to the audience, to the students. And it will launch sometime next week, the first course. And the first workshop is the foundation. So we have the reset phase, the transformation phase, and then the rise phase. And the rise phase is the one that is a little more esoteric and a little more woo-woo. Some people will be like, what the hell happened to Scott Fobel, right? Some people will be like, Scott Fobel has become some sort of star child. What the hell happened to him? Which is fine. I'm okay with that. I'm actually really comfortable with my with a label of being a star child, or being a star seed, or being a spiritual teacher, or being that's fine. I'm a being, just like everybody else is a being. I have learned some things along the way that I want to share. I also have some inherent things that I haven't shared publicly about my meditation and my empathic journey from when I was a little boy. I was very empathic. I went to high school with Christy. Christy probably remembers that I was very empathic back then. Most of my high school friends and my college friends remember how I was back then. So now that I've matured and I've developed those gifts, Chad probably remembers this too. But now these gifts are things that are passions, and they are purposes. And so all these little signposts in the last 6 months along the way have been like every other major signpost that I've had in my life. And I talk about that in the workshop. I talk about the major signposts I've had along the way. I had a signpost early, very early in my life, that I needed to take care of my health. Very early. I was a fat kid. I was a fat preteen. I was skinny as a little kid, but when I got into 5th and 6th grade, I began to really put on the weight, and I became chunky. So I understood that I needed to be more active, and so I've done that my whole life. the signpost along the way. I had an incident when I was a little boy on coming to the aid of somebody else who was in trouble that I talk about in the course. And I do this as an illustrative practice, and I try to talk about the lesson that I learned from that. Well, 3 years ago, I got a big signpost. 4 years ago right now. Actually, 4 years ago in 2 weeks. 4 years ago in 2 weeks, I was fired from my highfalutin political job in a very public way. It was on every major blog and every paper in the country when I was fired. And I don't go into depth about that situation other than to say that it happened, and it forced me into the depths of my addiction. I spent the next 10 months really just exploring my addiction in a very unhealthy way. I was isolated. I went into hiding. I had some death threats that I had to deal with at that point. And for my own safety, I got out of the way. But I also sank way deep into my addiction at that point. And so 10 months after, I made a choice in July of 2017 to go to rehab and to go to detox and then rehab. And that was the beginning of the last 3 year journey in recovery. And it hasn't been perfect. I've had a few bumps along the way. I've had a couple relapses along the way. And I talk about that. And then the last 6 months have been another signpost. So these shifts that we do along the way are driven by signposts, but we have to be present and aware, and we have to be centered on making that shift. And when you are centered and focused, you also find out that self-care is a key part of maintaining that center, maintaining that core focus, being able to listen and being able to observe, being able to listen here, but also listen here, and see here, but also see here. And I'm pointing to the third eye for those of you who don't know what that means. The third eye is your pineal gland, but it's also your connection to your consciousness. It has dual purposes there. It is the center of our empathic abilities, is our pineal gland. And as you develop your own internal passion and you develop that inner voice and you start listening to the presence and you start listening to the messages that you're getting, you develop further in a way where it forces you to go deeper into the presence, and you hear more and you hear deeply and you feel deeply, and then you develop this sense, of what your passion is. Once you have developed what that passion is as an idea, then you have to make some choices on what you're going to do about it. Again, you can either ignore that the passion's over here and keep going on your existing path, even though it's unhappy for you to be on your existing path, or maybe it's just okay. Maybe your existing path is fine. It's fine, but it's not your passion. So, the old adage that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, that doesn't just apply to work, trading money for trading labor. That's work. Trading money for trading labor. That's the economics of it. That is the way the capitalist system is set up. That's what we're in. Everybody thinks we're in a democracy. We're in a capitalist system first. Democracy comes second. It shouldn't be that way from my point of view, but other people have different perspectives. So, each of us sees the world through our own lens. But you have a choice. You have a choice to either follow that passion and listen to that passion and find out what your calling is out of that passion, because your passion and your calling are very often related to each other in a very direct way. They might be the same thing. So if your passion is speaking in front of groups, you might actually have a calling to be a public speaker. If your passion is baking a kick-ass pie, Maybe your calling is to bake things for the homeless. If your passion is writing, maybe you are called to write a book, or write as a journalist, or write as a blogger, or write about crafting for moms who craft. It can be anything like that. If your passion is being a business person and being an entrepreneur, well, okay, so that's related. What is your calling then out of that passion? What's going to be your product? What's going to be your service? Who is your audience? Who is your niche in that audience? Who is your avatar customer? What is your framework for creating your business? What framework are you going to execute it on? Are you using an online platform, or are you using a bricks and mortar platform? Are you going to be a consultant? Are you going to start a business that hires other employees? What about the legal stuff? What about a trademark? What about a website? What about selling your product? All these things. That's another passion, right? That's another passion that gets you to a calling. And so all of these signposts along the way get louder and brighter if we are practicing presence. And so if we practice presence and we listen to that inner consciousness and align with our higher being, while focusing on our goals, we reach a place of manifestation. Now, manifestation is a big fancy word for the universe doing it for you. Ever heard of The Secret? So the principle of The Secret is, if you can think it, it can happen for you, and it will happen. What you focus on will flow. What you focus on will flow for you. And your life will begin to shift from being hard to being a flow process. And as you manifest, you get more skills to manifest more. So I talk about that in the Rise process, and how to connect with Source so that you can manifest in an active way. Everything I've done in my life, from working in television and radio, from working as a political consultant, to being a athlete, to every relationship I've ever had, each one of those things were manifestations that I needed at that time. And they were manifestations both for the positive and for the negative. I don't classify them as positive or negative anymore. I classify them as things that happened. But I also don't live in the past. And so the whole point of this live video is, if you're living in the past, if you're living stuck with old stories, if you're living without an understanding of how you need to shift, well, let's get you unstuck. I can help you with that. The coronavirus calamity, the coronavirus tragedy, the coronavirus event is a signpost from the universe that we as human beings must change. We must change. We must change in a lot of ways. And one of those ways is, it's time for us to wake up. It's time for us to stop being drones and stop accepting what the programming that our society puts in us and has put in our DNA, and start answering our higher calling. It's time for us to wake up and rise. It's time for us to get to a higher place and be the luminous beings that we are. We all have a star seed within us. We all have a being within us that is calling us to do something higher. Well, now, as a collective, our collective consciousness is being challenged by a virus, not to divide us, but to bring us back together, to take us from a place of density where, the world is really dense right now. The energy is dense, the frequency is low, there's a lot of division, there's a lot of hatred, there's a lot of economic disparity, there's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of distraction with media, there's a lot of shell games going on with people in leadership positions. There is the control mechanism that the capitalist society puts on our beings. Well, we don't have to participate in any of it if we don't want to. We can make a choice like Buddha and sit under a tree and wait for enlightenment to happen. Or we can, or we can take the signposts that we've received. Hi, Krista. Thanks for joining us. Any question you have along the way here, if you want to ask a question, please ask it in the comments. I will answer all questions, either on here or if you're watching the replay, I'll answer them online. The signposts we're receiving along the way are intended for us to end this division, end this have-not society, and all be on the level. All be on the level of consciousness together. All of us rising to a level of unity and love and appreciation for each other. All together as one people. Racism disappears. Classism disappears. Hatred disappears. All of these levels of disparity get evened out. We get on the same even playing field. Not as countries, not as political parties, not as white versus black versus Latino versus Asian versus gay versus women, none of that. To all beings are equal. All power is equal because we're going to be operating at a higher frequency. We're going to be operating at a higher level of being. 10 years from now, we're not even going to recognize what this society was today. And we're going to look back and say, what the was that? We're going to recognize in the future that we were on a really, really bad run for a long time. And the wars we've had along the way are evidence of that. But let's bring it back home. Let's bring it back to our individual beings, because we can only be responsible for our own individual beings. What are you going to do today, right now, to take action on manifesting within, creating, being the alchemist of your own story? What is your manifesting going to look like? Are you going to start a new business? Are you going to get in shape? Are you going to get more connected with spirit? Are you going to create better relationships with your friends and family and with your partner? Are you going to quit that job that has been making you crazy? What are you going to do to move the ball forward? What are you going to do to move the needle in your life? What are you going to do to take advantage of this opportunity of COVID, instead of looking at it as something that's forced upon you, looking at it as an opportunity, as a gift that's given to us to start over and to do something new? What are you going to do to take the bull by the horns and do something? What's your manifesting action going to be today? Also, what are you doing to care for yourself while you are making these decisions? Are you going for walks in nature? Are you going for a run? Are you meditating? Are you chanting? Are you praying? Are you volunteering? Are you sitting in the sun and just enjoying the fall weather? Are you having deep conversations with friends and family about what your purpose is? Are you taking time to practice good nutrition? Are you taking time to practice good sleep habits? Huge sleep habits. We need sleep hygiene now. We need it yesterday. I hope some of you are getting better sleep than you were before COVID happened. I know I am. Very weird dichotomy that I'm getting better sleep now than I was before, but I am. What are you doing to take this opportunity that COVID has created for you and really put the pieces together to create a shift and create a manifesting shift so that you can actually move towards your dreams. You can move towards aligning with what your calling is, aligning with what your passion is, using the universal wisdom. And whether you believe in a higher power or not, it's wisdom that's out there. It doesn't matter whether it's out there or in here, but universal wisdom. What are you doing to listen to that universal wisdom and pay attention to the signposts that you are receiving as you're going down this road called life and taking action on it? So if you want to answer these questions, leave me a DM or leave a comment in the box and I'll reach out to you. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can email me at resettransformrise@gmail.com and we'll get started on a program. If you sign up at resettransformrise.com, you can sign up for the email there, and then you'll get the invitation to the first workshop, which launches very soon. So love you guys. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching, and peace, love, and namaste.